We have the rand, 7 rand 5 this morning, so a little bit of stability coming through after yesterday's slide to 7.23. Big news for the day, though, really appears to be G7 intervention in the yen markets at this stage. We have been discussing it in studio. What's your view on this? Would this just be a short-term respite for the yen?
Morning, Stephen. Well, certainly we would be hoping that it isn't. What actually happened is we saw the yen strengthen significantly in the wake of the news of the earthquake, which is quite unexpected. You would actually have expected the currency to weaken, given the growth of the impact that the earthquake would have on economic growth. But it seems that what everyone was focusing on is the fact that there'd be significant building effort required in the wake of that earthquake. And with the Japanese economy having struggled recently, the emphasis seemed to be on the expectations that this rebuilding effort would be a huge economic boost for the country. So we saw the yen strengthen quite significantly, and as a consequence, the rand actually lost ground against the yen. But following the announcement by the G7, we've seen the yen actually weaken further, and that seems to be in what they're trying to do is actually help the Japanese economy recover, and aiming for what seems to be an export-led boost.
Could there still be some concern, though, that we could see further rand weakness against the yen as Japanese funds liquidate some of their investments offshore in South Africa, repatriate that money to Japan for that building effort?
That certainly is a risk, Stephen, but we think based on yesterday's movements, we saw the rand strengthen quite significantly against the yen. So it does seem at first glance that the intervention by G7 countries is working. So we think that the risk at this point, as far as the rand-yen cross rate is concerned, is that there is potential further strength for the rand against the yen. But as far as the rand against other currencies, given geopolitical tensions and, of course, the aftermath of the earthquake, we think that the rand bias against other crosses remains for further rand weakness against those crosses, but the risk of further rand strength against the yen.
Well, we have seen that euro strengthening a little bit all the way to almost 141 against the dollar. Still a feeling in the market that the ECB could hike rates at its meeting next month. We also saw a decent Spanish bond auction, so have we also seen the rand losing a bit of ground against that euro strength?
Yes, Stephen. What's interesting is the euro certainly has strengthened, particularly against the dollar, and we think that it's really been boosted by expectations of an imminent rate hike in that area, also helped by the fact that given all the other uncertainty in global markets, attention seems to have shifted temporarily away from the Eurozone debt crisis. So as far as the short-term view is concerned, we see the euro remaining slightly stronger against the dollar, and then we've seen the rand against the dollar also reflect this improvement.
Well, this volatility still in the market. Do you think we're going to see the volatile currency movements going forward into the new week as we have over the past week or two?
Certainly that effect can't be discounted, Stephen, particularly with what the G7 has announced. But we think as far as the rand specifically is concerned, that this is a temporary bounce. We'd be expecting to see the rand resume its weakening trend. We've penciled in an expectation of 7.25 against the dollar by the end of this quarter. So as far as next week's concerned, we'd expect to see some significant rand weakness then come back into the currency.